Okay, here is our test review video. In this first problem, we are multiplying fractions and we will need to factor as we go. Remember, multiplying goes across the top and bottom. You combine everything. So in this first numerator, I can't factor. It's just 2x. The second one is the difference of squares. So we're going to square root and then make a minus version and a plus version. The denominator is a regular cross method, what multiplies to the last one and adds to the middle. So that's going to be -4, -3. And we just throw some x's in there, and we have our factored form. And then 6x squared, I'm just going to leave like that. And here is how we simplify. We cancel common factors on top and bottom. So there's x minus 3 in common. This 2 and this 6 make a fraction together. That simplifies to 1/3. And then x over x squared simplifies. There's more x's on the bottom, so keep x on the bottom and then subtract the exponents. So there's a 1 here, so 2 minus 1 is 1. And that one cancels. So here's what we're left with. X plus 3 on top and x minus 4 times 3x on the bottom. In number 2, we are subtracting two fractions with different denominators. So we need to find a group denominator or common denominator, also called least common denominator. And we're going to look at the number parts first, so 6 and 9. Find multiples of the bigger number until you find one that the other one goes into. So starting with 9, 18, 27, you can see that the 6 and the other denominator also goes into 18. So that's going to be the number part of my LCD. And then for the variable parts, they both have an x, and then you're going to choose the higher exponent. So now we need to rewrite these so they match this one. So in the first denominator, 6 times 3 will make me have 18. Do that to top and bottom. And it already has the x cubed, so we don't have to change that. In the second one, 9 times 2 will give me 18. So multiply by 2, top and bottom. And then it has 2 x's, and I need one more. So I'm going to multiply by x to the 1. So in the next step, I'm going to combine everything while I'm doing my math. So I'm going to combine these two fractions, but they're going to have the same denominator, 18x cubed. And then these numerators, 3 times 7 is 21. Minus comes from the problem. And then 2 times 2x is 4x. And you want to check here if you can factor and simplify. We can't, so it's just going to stay like this. In this next problem, we have dividing by a fraction. So this means we're going to keep the first fraction the same, change the division to multiply, and then flip the second fraction. And we're going to factor while we do that, and we're going to put everything into one big fraction, because remember, multiplying, you multiply across the top and bottom. So starting with this numerator right here, what multiplies to the last term and adds to the middle, that is 5 and 7. So x plus 5 times x plus 7. Then it has x plus 5 in the denominator. Remember, the addition groups those together. Then over here, the bottom is now going to be on the top, so that's x plus 3. And then factoring this numerator, what multiplies to the last term and adds to the middle, and that is 3 and 7. And that's going to flip down to the denominator, so x plus 3 times x plus 7. And now cancel x plus 5, x plus 7, x plus 3. And remember, when everything cancels, you're really leaving behind a bunch of 1s, right? It's because anything divided by itself is 1. So 1 times 1 times 1, 1 over 1, or just 1. All right, here's another add-subtract problem with different denominators. So we need to make an LCD. So look at the number section first, 5 and 10. The smallest number that they both go into is 10. And then look at the x's, they both have an x, and the bigger power is 2. So now I need to change these so that they both have a denominator of 10x squared. So for this first one, 5 times 2 would give me 10. But it already has x squared, so I don't need to multiply it by anything. In the second fraction, it already has a 10, but it needs one more x. So I'm going to multiply it by x over x. Now what's different about this problem than number 2 is there's distributive property. So it's 2 times 3 everything in this numerator. So there's 2 things there, so they both get times 2. And in the second fraction, there's 2 things, they both get multiplied by the x. So I'm going to do the distributive property and combine into one fraction all at the same time. So in this first one, that's going to give me 6x plus 4. And in the second one, 7x squared minus 4x. Now combining like terms, nothing combines with 7x squared, but 6 and negative 4x make 2x, and then we have this 4 left. And you would still want to try and factor this if you could, but it doesn't. But always check for that. In this fraction right here, we need to factor top and bottom. This numerator is a slip and slide. I know because the a value is not 1. So I'm going to slip that down here and multiply. So now do my cross. What multiplies to the last term and adds to the middle, and that is negative 5 and 3. Now divide out this 3 that you multiplied in the beginning. This one simplifies, so that becomes m plus 1. This one doesn't, so slide the 3 back up front. Okay. So there's my factors for the numerator. The denominator is difference of squares. So I square root this and get m. I square root this and get 1. I make a minus version and a plus version. Then I cancel the common factors, m plus 1, and this is my final answer. On the back, I'm adding fractions that have the same denominator, so I don't have to rewrite anything. I just have to combine them into one. N squared plus 6n. I have to factor these. They're both a GCF. So GCF up here and a GCF here. The GCF in the numerator is n. So now I have n times n plus 6. And in the denominator, their GCF is 5. So 5 times n plus 6. These cancel, leaving me n over 5. This fraction here, or this problem here, again, is adding or subtracting with the same denominator. So we're going to combine them into one. The numerators give me 2t squared plus 5t minus 12. This is a slip and slide in the numerator. So that gives me t squared plus 5t minus 24, the 2 times that 12. Now cross what multiplies to the last term and adds to the middle, and that is 8 and negative 3. So I have t plus 8 times t minus 3. Divide out the 2 that you multiplied at the beginning. So this simplifies to t plus 4. This one doesn't simplify, so the 2 slides to the front, gives me 2t minus 3. So that was my numerator. The denominator is cross without having to do slip and slide because the a value is 1. So it multiplies to the last term and adds to the middle, and that is 4 and 4. So I've got t plus 4 times t plus 4. These cancel, and I'm left with these two as my final answer. On number 8, this is a complex fraction. So remember, it really has this long middle bar. So we have this top fraction divided by the bottom fraction. And we did that the other day by first writing it left to right. So instead of a division bar, we have a division symbol. And so now you have divide by a fraction. So this is going to be a keep, change, flip situation. So we are going to change to multiply and then flip the second fraction. And I'm going to factor as I go. And since I'm multiplying, we're combining across the top and bottom. So this numerator is 9x squared. This denominator is across. What multiplies to 30 and adds to 11, and that is 5 and 6. So this denominator is x plus 5 times x plus 6. In this fraction, the denominator is going to go up top. That is the difference of two squares. So I square root them, and I get x and 6. And I make a minus version and a plus and move it up top. And then this numerator comes down as 3x squared. So here's what we can cancel. An x plus 6 group. This 9 and this 3 simplifies. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And x squared divided by x squared leaves me with a 1. So now what I have left on top is 3 and x minus 6. And on the bottom I have an x plus 5. And then for this last problem, it's asking me for the area, which means length times width. So we have these two fractions that we're going to multiply, and we just need a factor as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and start by putting everything in one big fraction. I'm going to do this one first times this one second. So in this numerator, there's a GCF of 5x squared with leftovers of 2x plus 3. And you can check with distributive property if that works. Then on the bottom, we have a GCF of 5x squared with leftovers of x minus 6. Then this numerator is a difference of squares, so we square root them. That's a 6. We make a minus version and a plus version. And then this denominator is a GCF. They have a common factor of 2, so we pull that out. 2 times 2x plus 3. So canceling the 5x squareds, the 2x plus 3s, and x minus 6, and we're left with x plus 6 over 2.